Hello and welcome back to the OTB channel, and happy Easter. Today I'm going to take a look at a Debian distro, and when we normally look at Debian we're thinking Debian stable, quite old packages but very solid. But actually Debian has quite a few variants that you can choose from. You can choose the testing repo if you want something with newer packages that perhaps moves a little bit faster. Or if you really want to live on the edge and you want to go for a Debian rolling release, you can try the bad boy of Debian, Debian Sid or Debian Unstable. Well, we're going to look at a Debian Unstable distro today called Siduction. See you after the intro. Okay, welcome back. So, a Debian-based distro today. I don't do a great deal of those, and I thought perhaps I should rectify that because I still have two systems that I've pretty much used constantly, certainly since I've been running this channel, but for many years. I run Debian Stable. I use a version on my laptop in my office where I work during the day, and I use it for work because it is stable, solid. I don't really care if all the packages are cutting edge or whether they're quite old. And if I need something newer, I can always install something like a Flatpak. And so Debian Stable to me is, it's great if you want a really stable system. In fact, my website, OldTechBloke.com, runs on Debian Stable. It is a great distro for a server, without a doubt. But in this day and age, rolling release distros seem to have come to the fore, possibly with the emergence of so many new Arch distros. You've got Manjaro that's made the whole process really easy, but you've got so many variants of Arch itself that anyone can pretty much install it now. And it's acquired, I suppose, despite all the, FUD, fear, uncertainty and doubt surrounding Arch. I really don't think it's unstable. It's been pretty solid for me. Yes, there is the odd minor breakages, but if you update once a week, it's not a problem. Anyway, let's move over to Debian, who we associate with that stable, fixed release cycle where it's ready when it's ready. Stable isn't the only form of Debian that you can install. In fact, most people who run Debian as their day-to-day desktop would generally use testing, because testing is still pretty stable, but you've got newer packages. There is also, after testing, unstable. Not many people use unstable. Well, I say that. My impression is not many people use unstable as their day-to-day distro, simply because it is unstable, or at least it was the last time I used it. In fact, as you know, Debian always uses names from the film Toy Story to name its distros. So the current stable release is Buster. I think the testing release at the moment is Bullseye. And once testing becomes stable, it will become the next stable release. Debian Unstable, though, is always called Sid. And for those of you who remember the Toy Story film, Sid was the bad boy, the naughty boy. And so in a way, it's a great name for an unstable repo. And I don't think Debian necessarily see unstable as being something that you would install and use, unless you're a developer and you're using it for testing purposes. It's more a gateway where developers can upload their packages, and once everyone's happy that, they're relatively sound and they work fine, they'll then move across to the testing repo. But over the years, there's been various attempts to get a Debian unstable distro up and running. And back in the day, I think I've tried most of them. There was Kanotics. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but Kanotics, based on Debian Sid. Debian Sid, Debian Unstable. Really good. I enjoyed that. Lots of scripts that you could use to fix problems if they arose, and they always arose, I seem to remember. But a great script for installing the NVIDIA driver, and I had an NVIDIA card at the time. Kanotic is still out there, but I believe it's based on stable now, and it's become a commercial distro, and I don't know a great deal about it anymore. But we saw then distros such as Sidux, which was again based on the same principles, putting an unstable distro together, but trying to tame it in a way and keep it manageable. Then I think from Sidux, there was another distro called Apt to Sid, I think. And then from Apt to Sid, and I think this was due something to disagreements between the development team, Apt to Sid forked, and we got Siduction, which I'm going to look at today. So Siduction isn't new. It's been around for a few years, but there's been a few years hiatus since the last release. But a new release hit the downloads back in February, so it's got to be worth giving it a spin. So before we do that, let's just nip over to their website. So you should see the Siduction website there. Quite plain, muted colours, and it tells us right at the beginning, of the new release, which they call C Blues. I'm sure everyone can guess what C stands for, given what's been going on over the last 12 months. And they pick up immediately on this front page that there has been a problem with the latest Calamaris and what they've actually done. And going to the release notes for the 2021 version, C Blues. It's been 2018 since the last release, so it's been a while. Although arguably, with a rolling release distro, does that really matter? Because it's always going to be up to date. So we've got there, they've got variations. KDE Plasma is the flagship. They've got LXQT, Cinnamon, XFCE, and LXDE as well. They don't do a GNOME and a Mate, which is a shame, but again, you're using Debian. If you want to install it, you install it. So fairly straightforward. I've, for the sake of this review, I've used the XFCE version. They talk about a new iNet wireless daemon that they've put in, and why has there been no release since 2018, and they talk about the pandemic. And they also mention, somewhere, is it in here, that actually, I'm just thinking, I've seen it somewhere. Yeah, you can't, here we are. At the moment, during the installation, you can't opt out of having non-free packages and codecs installed. Whether you'd want to or not is a conversation in its own right. But if you want to remove them afterwards, apparently there's a script that says remove non-free, and we can actually do that. So how do you actually go and download it? There's not a lot to see here, really. Let me go all the way back up to the top. If I go to their download page, you can see that they've got a number of servers there. So if I just pick, I don't know, the official one, which seems to be Germany somewhere, and I click on C Blues, I then pick whichever version I want. So if I wanted XFCE, there we go, and I download the ISO, which, looking there, is around 2 gigs. So, look, that's what I did. Let's get it up and running, see what we think. So you should see on your screen now Siduction Linux. I haven't showed you the installation because it's your standard Calamaris install. I'd only say that it installed without issue. I was able to get a full HD display with the live ISO, and as soon as the installation was finished, again, I've gone to full HD. This is an XFCE desktop, and to be blunt, there's nothing special about it. In fact, the special thing about this distro is it uses Debian's unstable repo more than anything else. I've played around a little bit with it, and I've just rebooted it. Let's just see what HTOP is showing as far as memory is concerned. I wonder if I can just make that a little bit bigger. Apparently not doing it that way, but anyway, HTOP. 425 megs, which isn't bad. It's XFCE, so that's what I would sort of expect. So let's shut that down now, close the window, and see what we've got. I quite like the menu. This is the Whisker menu, as it says there, which is my favourite menu for XFCE as well. If I go to accessories, what have we got? The standard sort of stuff, bulk rename tool, checksum calculator, a clipboard manager, Midnight Commander, the file manager installed by default. That probably gives you an insight of, I suppose, the user base that the Sidux developers are probably thinking they're going to have using this. Oops, let me just close that thing down. Nope, I don't want to do that. I just want to get rid of the menu. There we are, it's gone. So, yeah, I was going through accessories. What else have we got? We've got the plank dock, which is showing at the top, but you've got a standard panel at the bottom. You've got a screenshot tool. You've got the graphical Vim editor there, an archive manager, disk burning, fine. I've noticed that rather than actually referring to the programs themselves, we have kind of the human readable names. So rather than GIMP, which is clearly installed there, it's just called Image Editor. Vector graphics, a drawing program, which seems to be part of the LibreOffice suite, a screen capture program. Okay, nothing special there. And it comes installed with Firefox and Thunderbird and an IRC client. What about multimedia? I think that's audacious. Let's just open it up from the top. Yes, it is. I just saw the little tooltip come up when I did it. So audacious, a multimedia player. What's installed? MPV. Okay, all good. Nothing wrong with that. SM player, by the look of it. YouTube browser for SM player. Screencast creator. Fine. There you've got LibreOffice. And then your standard settings. So there isn't anything, spectacularly different about this. It's the fact that this is based on Debian Sid. If I just go to the web pages, so Siduction Linux, and hopefully we should get, there's a link to the news page there. I'm going to go to what I think is probably one of the strongest parts of this. There's an online manual, which is absolutely great, and you kind of see the table of contents and you can work your way through all the various bits and pieces. So the developers have taken a long time, obviously, getting this right. I'm going to move over to the package management system, and there's all sorts of information here about how you can pin packages, etc., etc. But the one overview, there we are at the bottom, is in order to upgrade this, you obviously do an apt-get update, but rather than doing an apt-get upgrade, which is a partial upgrade, you would always do a dist upgrade. And they suggest that you shouldn't do this whilst in X. So you should go to a virtual terminal, you should issue the command init3, which puts you in a run level without the X server, and then do apt-get update, apt-get dist upgrade, apt-get clean to clear your package cache, and then you can go back into init 5 and relaunch the X server. I've just tried this, and I have to say it worked very, very smoothly. I had no issues, and, it's a month or so since this ISO was released, so there was quite a lot of updates to come down the line, and I didn't have any issues at all. It's strange, every time that I've played with a Sid-based ISO, and I mentioned earlier that started with Kanotics, and then Sidux, and then Sid, and now Siduction. They have all suggested that you always go into a virtual terminal and you don't do a dist upgrade whilst you've got X running. I find that quite strange in this day and age, especially if you look at the likes of Arch, which you're constantly doing the equivalent of a dist upgrade there. That's a rolling release as well. And I always stay in the X server. I open a terminal and do it. I do it by the command line. But I've never felt the need to actually close X in order to do it. So whether it's strictly, necessary, it probably isn't. But I suppose it does minimise the risk of breakage. So all good. And I sort of get the impression that all the way along the line of these Sid-based distros, your Kanotics, your Sidux, your Sid, etc., some of the same people are involved in the development, and undoubtedly some of the same users. So really like the manual. I think that's great. If we go to, there'll be a forum somewhere, I'm sure, but let's just go to the Wiki. Now, the only thing I'd say about the Wiki is it seems to be in German. If I click on shell tricks there, you see some of the entries there are in English, but it seems to be largely in German. So unless you've got a good grasp of German, you may well have to rely on Google Translate or something similar. So yeah, like that. I think that's really good. There's a news section that keeps you updated about, what's the current issue at the moment. There's a forum. Let's see how active the forum is. There seems to be plenty of up-to-date posts there. Having a look. January, March. Well, I say that. It's perhaps not massively busy, but nevertheless, it's always good to have these things. But for me, the manual is the key thing. So I did an upgrade, no different to doing an upgrade with Arch. I did really notice how much slower apt is compared to Pac-Man, I really have to say. But hey, that is what it is. So there's not a lot more to say. I don't know whether I like the look of this overall. I think, aesthetics, how it looks and the wallpaper it's using are not really important because these are the things that you can easily change. But I like a dark theme, but my God, this is dark. That wallpaper there is pretty gloomy, isn't it? Let's see what else they've got in terms of wallpaper offerings. Oops. Not a lot. You seem to have variations on a theme. And let's have a look at that. Is it going to change? Yes, it's going to change, but it's clearly not the right size. Should we try zoomed? See if that makes a difference. That makes a difference. Yeah, that gives it a little bit more light. And I think if I've got a dark theme, a slightly lighter wallpaper would be all good. What else? In terms of software, let's have a look at what repos it's got installed. So we've got a package manager here. And the one thing I do like about this is it's synaptic, which is probably my favourite Debian package manager. It really is. But let's have a look at the repositories and see what we've got. Right, so we've only really got 3 repos there. So we've got the standard Debian Unstable repo, we've got a Siduction Extra repo, and we've got a Siduction Fixes repo. So it's Debian Sid, but it's Debian Sid with these developers keeping an eye on it and putting in fixes where they believe it's necessary. It's probably a wise move if you want to run Debian Unstable to run something like this, where there is people, making sure that you still have a running system and that you ride the waves and the ups and downs of Debian Unstable. But other than that, what do you say about it? It's fine if you want to change from Arch and you like a rolling release and you prefer newer packages. Give something like Siduction a try, or just stay with Arch. Let's have a chat. So that's Siduction. What do I think? Do you know, it's quite strange. I like a rolling release. There was nothing much to see as far as the distro was concerned. I didn't have any problems with it. It installed absolutely fine. I was able to do a disk upgrade absolutely fine. But there was nothing that made it outstanding as far as I was concerned, other than the fact it was based on Debian Unstable. And that is a good thing, because it essentially gives you a vanilla palette to build your own distro and to put your own themes and your own wallpaper in and make it your own. So yeah, it doesn't come with many pretty bells and whistles, but that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Debian Unstable, though, is it unstable? I'm not sure. If I'm honest, I'm not qualified to say anymore, because I've heard a lot of people saying they've been running Unstable and they haven't had any problems. And maybe that's the case these days. I can only say that when I ran Kanotics and Sidux and apt2sid, I was always breaking the distro and having to reinstall from scratch. That was partially because of my lack of experience at the time, I'm sure, and perhaps the state of Debian Unstable. Because Debian Unstable and its health does change, and it depends what packages are coming into it at any point. I'm sure that if you get yourself into a routine where you just do a once-a-week dist upgrade, you'll be absolutely fine. But will it run as, I don't know, error-free as Arch tends to run for me? And I don't know, because whilst they're both essentially a rolling release, Arch is designed to be an installable distro. Debian Sid is not really designed to be an installable distro. I don't think Debian expect people to actually run it as a desktop system. Obviously it's there and it can run as a desktop system because, if it's there, people are going to do it. Does that make it any less stable? I don't know. I'd be quite interested in your comments. It's a good option, though, because for me, after all these years, 2004, I started using Linux. I've now got myself to the point where I only use 2 systems. I use Arch and I use Debian. Not really interested in the rest. Yes, I review the likes of OpenSUSE and Fedora and the fine distros as they go. But I have settled, and I can't see myself moving away from that now. But yeah, so nothing bad to say about Debian Siduction. I'd just be interested in what the long-term experience is like, because you see so few Debian Unstable distros out there, and when they have arisen in the past, they don't seem to last that long, which is a slight concern. But anyway, that's it for today, guys. It's the Easter weekend. We actually have some sun. One of the reasons I've made this quite a relatively brief video, well, for me anyway, a relatively brief video, is my wife is off work today, and I intend to sit in the sun in the garden, perhaps with my coat on because it's not quite as warm as it hopefully will be, but kind of enjoy a glass of wine or a beer later on. So, guys, thanks very much. As always, come and join me on the Facebook group. Certainly come and watch me on Library. Library seems to be going through a few issues. I watched Chris Titus Tech's video the other day, and they're being sued by is it the SEC? Not really sure what's going to come out from all of that, but watch this space. And guys, as always, and let me just pull everybody's names over, if I could just thank my Patreons, so that's Robert, Gary, Aristotelis, Stormpick, Stephen, Mike, David, Richard, Ty, Forrest, Patrick, Glenn, Magnus Skipper, John M, and David Van Tongaloo. And I do hope I'm getting your name right there, David. So that's it for today, guys. See you next week. Have a great Easter.